still have the Shem. We still have Hashem, actually. We still have the Koach HaTfilah. What got Klal Yisrael out of the Golos, by the way? By Yizaku, when they started to cry out to Hashem, when they started to use their dibur, that's when they started to break out. So now, so if we want to really understand what happened here, Klal Yisrael, by virtue of Yaakov going to Mitzrayim, ensured that their cube would never be destroyed. He put it in Eretz Goshen. He detached himself from anything to do with Paro. What was going on in the land of Goshen? He sent Yehuda Yishalach Lefanav to do what? To make a Beit HaTalmud, to make a place of the exchange of Torah learning, of words of Torah, so that he protected the dibur of Klal Yisrael until such time where it could go back to its 70 languages. When does the dibur of Klal Yisrael go back to 70 languages? Where? Which location? Which specific location do you have to know all 70 languages in order to get into that cube, in order to get into that space? The Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin has to know all 70 languages. Did you know that? They cannot hear testimony if they don't understand it. You cannot accept testimony in a capital case or in a case that involves the 71, which is the national tribunal, unless the judges themselves understand the words. So if Mitzrayim is a place where there's only one language, we're in complete separation from everybody else in the world. Yerushalayim, on the other hand, is the place where we're in complete connection with the world. Okay? And that only happens through who? Through Yosef Haya b'Mitzrayim. It's Yosef that's the key to springing us out of Mitzrayim. Now, to that end, I'll explain to you a question from last week's parsha. That's very, very important. Okay. If you recall, and what I mean to share with you is that the going into Mitzrayim was not haphazard. There was a plan here. It was carefully formulated. And it had something that it speaks to us. Every one of us. That's why I said about the 7-year cycles of your life. You could look at every one as its own little Mitzrayim that you get out of, or another Golos that you go out of. And it's part of your work to see your life as going from no dibur to dibur, evolving out of that place. Okay, so last week's parsha, there were two conversations between Yosef and Yaakov. What were the two conversations about? At the beginning of the parsha, what does Yaakov do? In Parshas Vayechi, he calls Yosef and says, Al na tikbareni be Mitzrayim. Don't bury me in Egypt. Okay? It makes him swear, don't bury me in Egypt. Then there's a second conversation. Yaakov doesn't initiate it. Yosef brings his two sons, Ephraim and Menashe, for a bracha. In which one of the two conversations does Yaakov say, please don't be mad at me that I didn't bury your mother in Hebron? You would think, right? Second one. Doesn't say anything about Rachel. It's only when he brings his sons for a bracha, right, that he gives the bracha, and then he says, I please excuse me for not burying your mother. Because he says as follows, Vayomer Yaakov el Yosef, Kel Shaddai nir lai beluz, Hini mafrecha, I'm giving you the bracha of being of creating a double tribe, meaning you're the Bechor, you're going to have two tribes come out of you. I give you that bracha. And then he says, Va'ani beboi mi padan, when I came from Lavan, me salai Rachel b'derech Canaan, b'derech ba'od kibbas aretz, lavo efras. I could have buried her easily in Hebron. I didn't. Why not? Because I wanted her to be by Kever Rachel when Klal Yisrael goes into Golos, that she's going to open her mouth and find the words to daven for them and redeem them. Why does he say that now? Say it. Because there's two different things going on here. In the first conversation, Yaakov says, I got to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. I've got to demonstrate that we can get out of here. The second conversation was, Yosef, I'm positioning you in a very special way. You are going to be a double tribe. And in that double tribe, there's part of you that's going to be more important than the other. Which is the part that's going to be more important? Ephraim, more important than Menashe. Which piece of land does Yaakov give to Yosef? He gives him Shechem, which is in which part of the Eretz Yisrael? In the boundary of Ephraim. Where was the Mishkan? In the boundary of Ephraim. Who was the first leader to take them to Eretz Yisrael? Yehoshua, who was from Ephraim. And he sets up the Mishkan, which was in the territory of Shiloh, which is in Ephraim. Okay? Everything Ephraim starts because Ephraim is the Iker part of Yosef, and Ephraim's job is getting back from Golus. Because that's Yosef's job. Yosef gets us out of Golus. Yosef haya b'Mitzrayim. Once we get into Eretz Yisrael, who takes over? After Yeshua dies, who's immediately the next person to take over? They say, okay, who's going to lead us now? And they throw they ask the Urim V'Tumim, and what does it say? Yehuda Ya'aleh. Yehuda immediately takes over. Because that's the job of, there's two agendas. There's the agenda of Boy Mitzrayim. How does a Jew survive in Golus and get back from Golus? That's Yosef's job. And once that's finished, once we're back home from Golus, we go to Malchus, and that's only Yehuda's job. That's why there's a Mashiach ben Yosef and a Mashiach ben David. That's why we're in the midst of the Mashiach ben Yosef process, because we're returning from Golus, and we haven't fully returned. And we're not even fully out of Golus yet. Although we have to say, and we have to open our mouths and be Modet Hashem about the acceleration, the rapid acceleration of the events of Yosef taking us out of Mitzrayim have happened in the past month or so. Right? First of all, and what is going on? Yosef is the counterbalance to Esav, right? He took Esav's place. But he's also the redemptive force. Anytime a guy is good to a Jew in Golus, it has to do with Yosef. Because Yosef is the tzaddik. You know that Goyim love tzaddikim? Did you ever know that? Do you know that lots of Goyim go and daven by Kivrei tzaddikim, whether it was in Ukraine or a lot of in Morocco and in Egypt? There's untold stories about non-Jews understanding a Jewish tzaddik, I don't mess with him. That's a holy man. That's the one I have to be worried about him. I have to be concerned. I'm not going to mess with a great tzaddik. And any one of the great tzaddikim, even up until our generation, something like the Lubavitch Rabbi, or any of the really known tzaddikim, the Goyim had reverence for them. Reverence for them. It was unbelievable. That's the concept. So that's what we need to survive, and that's what we need to return from Golus. But we have to thank Hashem how the Mashiach ben Yosef process is speeding up. First of all, how many millions of Jews are living in Eretz Yisrael today? More. I think it's 6.5 million Jews already. How long did that take to happen? Not very long in the terms of our history. Right? In 1948, there were roughly a little more than 500,000 Jews, 600,000 Jews. 48 to 2018. How many years is that? Exactly 70 years. Correct? In 70 years, the population has multiplied by more than 10. Tenfold. Boy, that's even better than Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, we did 6 at a time. How is it possible that in a short span of 70 years, and that 70-year period is over? What happened in the past 70 years was that Klal Yisrael en masse returned to Eretz Yisrael. En masse. I'm not going to talk about the conditions that returned, and the difficulties, and the pain, and the suffering, and the that. Yes, but of the Gadol, we came back. What now? So what now? What now is the completion of the... What now? We answered the question. Okay. What's now is the completion of the job of Yosef. Yosef is buried in Shechem. Yaakov says, I'm giving you Shechem as part of your Bechorah, the Bechorah that makes Ephraim bigger than Menashe. Shechem is in Ephraim. Shechem is the place where Klal Yisrael can either pull together or break apart. It's Makam HaMuchan LeParanios. It's where it was the capital of the northern kingdom. It was where Yeravim ben Nevat broke away with the 10 tribes. Terrible, terrible problem. It was where Dinah was taken away. It's a bad place unless the tzaddik is there, like everything else. If the tzaddik is there, we can transform that place into a place of unity. If the crown of Yosef is on the Aron, the opposition backs away. Shechem is not fully in our hands. I was supposed to go to Kever Yosef last week, except I misunderstood the text that I received. It wasn't Yosef. It was Kalev and Yehoshua, the 2 spies. Okay, so that wasn't what I was psyched up to go for, so I didn't end up going. But we did end up in Tzfat for Shabbos, so that was very exciting. But we did have a holy experience. We went to Shem Bayochai, etc. But the work of Shechem is not yet complete. When will it be complete? When the area of contest between Klal Yisrael and the Ummos Olam, specifically 3 places, Chevron, Shechem, and Yerushalayim. That's what we're up to. Okay? This is precisely what's going on. And we see cracks in the prison. Right? Trump's announcement of Yerushalayim was an earth-shattering event. And we spoke about last week a lot, because it goes against the core golus. What's the core golus of the Jewish people? That the Goyim say, Listim atem asher ganavtem eretz shiva amimim. And the 7 nations of Canaan are the paradigm of the 70 nations of the world. They're saying, you don't belong there, it belongs to everybody else. It belongs to everyone else but you. So to crack that is an incredible thing. Just ask the Palestinians. They're in shock. They see this as another Balfour Declaration, as we spoke about. But the second crack came with the release of Rubashkin. Why? Because, remember, Yosef was in prison? When Yosef was in prison, was he all broken up about it? No. Did he function well? Did he make everything a success? Was he skipping around happy and joyful and making everybody happy? How do you know? Because when he sees the Sar Mashkim and the Sar Ofi, he says to them, Lama naflu panecha, why are you so sad today? Which means that he was the happy guy for everybody. In other words, he made sure that everybody was happy. So I think it behooves us to open our word, to use our words, to thank Hashem, Halal v'Hodah, this happened in Hanukkah, for what happened on Zos Hanukkah, that Rubashkin got out. And then again, it's, in a way, it's not a personal victory, but it's a victory for Klal Yisrael. Now, I'm not here to condone wrongdoings or whatever happened. Fine. Trumped up charges. Yosef also had trumped up charges. Notice the word trumped up. But the release of Rubashkin was a little bit of the release of the collective soul of Klal Yisrael. How do I know? Because look at the dancing and the spontaneous joy. If it was just a single thing, I have a mechutin who's a very, very special Jew. And he was, grew up as his father was a big JDL guy, and he got into Kiruv and NCSY, and he's a big chassid of Rabbi Schweinberger, my mechutin. And he wore a bracelet that had Rubashkin's, free justice for Rubashkin. He wore it for the 8 years, that rubber thing. And my son sent me a picture of him having Rubashkin remove it. Amazing picture, because they were all dancing and celebrating together. Yeah, removing a shackles. A shackles was removed. Something monumental happened. A golus means we're in prison, right? A little bit we broke out of prison, maybe a lot. Something dramatic happened here. And so we have to say something about him so we understand it better. Obviously, Hashem chose him to be the collective prisoner of Klal Yisrael because he was a very unique individual. What a Baal Madrega. He acted like Yosef. He was happy the whole time. He was dancing and giving chizuk, Aleph Beis Gimel. His motto was Aleph Beis Gimel, Emuna, Bitachon, Geula. Isn't that a message for us? It's ABC. Aleph, as easy as ABC. But is it as easy as ABC? My wife said to me that I asked her what impressed her most about the story, because she read all the magazines. I haven't I don't have that luxury. But I want to. I want to read it, Bedafka, even though it's hard for me to read, but sit down and read it. I have the Zitzfleisch to read the magazines. But I asked her, what was the most impressive thing that happened? She said, when they told him he was free to go, he said, just a minute, I have to go and bench because we're in the middle of a Zos Hanukkah Suda. You hear this? He went back into the cell. When you tell you're gone, he's like, you'd be out that door so fast. He says, I have to bench because he said, I was never in prison. He said, I was never imprisoned in my mind. I was just in a place that Hashem called prison. So my 12-year-old says to me, I'll see you when I get out of prison today, which he refers to his school as prison. And we have this running conversation about why it should not. So I said, Rubashkin, if you can't be any worse than Rubashkin, right? He was in his real prison, and he didn't call it prison. So you can't call the Chomer. You can't call your school a prison. You can't call your yeshiva a prison. And he's a mechayev for Klal Yisrael to perceive itself as not restricted by these petty things. Another story happened that apparently a woman came to him who was 8 years in a guna. Have you read this story or hear this story? And she said, I'm also a prisoner. I'm also a prisoner. She says, gives me your husband's number. I called him right on the spot. It's as if to say, don't you put any other Jew in prison. Don't you imprison anybody else. I can call you on that now. So that was another change in the dynamic. So he taught us an amazing lesson of not allowing the gullus to destroy who we are, which was what Yaakov's whole point in the begin with. Well, I don't want to be with Paro. Paro represents Mitzrayim, restrictions. Yaakov rejects Paro and says, here's your money, leave me alone. Here's your nilus. Here's your avodah zarah of self. I'm not in prison. I'm in my own place. And that's really the galus of Yosef. So what does it mean for us? We have to think that just like Klal Yisrael can emerge from these places very quickly. We think it was expected that Rubashkin was going to get out? No. How many Jews were involved in getting Rubashkin out? Who were the key people in getting him out? Do you know? I heard Alan Dershowitz who was no, frummy, very liberal left wing, but he stepped up and saved the Jew using his status as a Yosef. Isn't he a Yosef? People who reach that level of prominence in the Goyish world. He's associated with law on the highest level, Harvard Law. You can't get any higher than that. There is nothing higher than that. And he was there. And he used it to help save a Jew. Who knows if Leis Kazos he got the Malchus. Maybe the whole point of him being there was this moment. I know there were other people involved too. There were many, many people involved. But the fact that there were many people involved in freeing a Jew from the injustice of the Golus, right? It was an unjust sentence. It was a suffering. So Rabbi Kessin, who I'm close with, describes this as Esav doing tshuva. So what's going on is that Esav is doing tshuva. What is Esav doing? He's telling the world, Chatati aviti pashati, I sinned by subjugating the Jewish people and punishing them and hurting them all these years in this terrible Galus Edom. And now Galus Edom is coming to an end. Which means that what we're seeing is an acceleration of the process of Mashiach ben Yosef, which means hold on to your horses. Somehow, a lot more people are going to be arriving here very soon. Buy apartments. There's one rabbi in Israel who predicted, the whole thing with Trump being elected, etc. So he said a funny thing, but maybe a business opportunity. He said, American Jews are going to be confronted with an economic reality that they're going to see that their bigger success will be to come to Israel. They'll have to come to Israel. And they're going to end up settling in the south because that's the only place that's not really developed. And he says, and that's their punishment for coming last. See, we got nice mountains here, and we're close to Yerushalayim, When you come last, you get the least desirable, You're going to live in Beersheba, buy apartments in Beersheba, Arad, who knows. But they're all coming. And we have to have emunah that this is what's going on. I mean, our job is to be haboim mitzrayma, to understand we are coming with a purpose, and the purpose is to get out. And that we're never really anything but boy Mitzrayim. Do you get it? We never actually came to Mitzrayim. We never were actually in Mitzrayim. We're just on our way to Mitzrayim. That was the reality of Rabashkin. That was the reality of Yosef. That was the reality of Yaacov. And that has to be our reality too. It was just a ki'ilu, not real. Real means forever, and it's not forever. So I just want to end with a very, very, okay, we're going to end very quickly. I'll just tell you a little Torah from Rabbi Nachman that was shared with me, and I think it's germane to this point. So he says, this is Torah Ayin Tes. He says a very interesting thing. He says there's two levels of tshuva. When the world is coming to its, tikkun, and when a person is coming to their tikkun, there's the type of tshuva where they're, how shall I say, inconsistent. One day they're kadosh, and one day they're not so kadosh. One day they got it right, and one day they fall. It's an up and down thing. So that's a level of tshuva that's akin to the 6 days of the week. But then there's a tshuva which is called Shabbos tshuva. Shabbos tshuva means the battle, the up and down battle with the Yetzer Hara is over. And you achieved that level. You've left that golus, and you're in the new zone, which is a Shabbos dik zone. And that's his point. He says, and how do you get there? He says, the way you get there is by underestimating yourself. What does that mean? He says, most of the problems people have in accomplishing tshuva is because they view themselves as supposed to being more than they actually are at that point. They look at their potential and they see, well, everything should be according to my potential, but not according to my reality, what I've earned and what I've accomplished. He says, put yourself a little bit lower and say, this is who I am, and this is what I've done. And from that point, you can achieve a restful and comprehensive tshuva. So my hope is, as we conclude this dramatic Hanukkah season, is that we all remain we're entering Shmos, haboy Mitzrayim, but never in Mitzrayim. That we've set the course of the future, which is the 12 and the 72, to know that the main way we're going to have influence is not when we're 1, but when we are 72. That and that's what's going on right now. The transition between Yosef and Yisrael means we've got to come together with great unity and strength. And I think Rubashkin was an example of that, and I think hopefully the declaration about Yerushalayim was an example of that. And then the cubes are going to start to fall into place, which means that the 70 nations are going to push us faster than we can go. So when somebody from Guatemala comes knocking at your door and says, "Can you teach me Torah?" you better be ready. Okay, we'll stop here.